Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome to Making It in Motorsports. My name is Amit Scotland. I am a professional race car driver for the last 8 years, and I am hoping with this course or series, it's actually an experiment for me, to teach as much as I can the things that I have learned over the course of my career in the hopes that I can teach others and keep you all away from the pitfalls, the myths, the confusion and the mystery in the world of racing. In this case specifically, the business, sponsorship, and general getting started in the world of motorsports. I've noticed it is quite elusive when you first get your racing license, or even before then, if you just want to get started and have no idea how. And so I figured it would be good for me to start doing some videos in the hopes that I could be helpful to whoever is interested. Alright, so for whoever is following me on Instagram, I've been posting some stories asking what subject should we discuss. And I'm actually really glad most people actually voted for getting started in motorsports and the sponsorship and business side of motorsports. Now, the reason why I'm happy about that is because there are plenty of videos, plenty of drivers, and plenty of schools out there that can teach you how to drive a car fast and how to learn different driving disciplines in general. So I'm not too worried about anyone getting into a car, practicing, learning, and getting good at those techniques. There's plenty of information out there. But the elusive, difficult, mysterious part of racing is how do you actually create a professional racing career from nothing? And the reason why is because we have a couple of myths in racing. And the first misconception, the first myth is you have to be rich in order to race. True, mostly. And the reason why is because if you're a great football player or a great basketball player, the starting costs for you to show your skill is actually very low. I mean, with football, you just need a ball. And with basketball, you need a ball in the basket. So in reality, you can show your skills and you can really shine and be scouted for teams and hopefully, if you're talented enough, become a professional ball player without having to worry too much about the initial starting costs. Now, I do understand there are always costs to be noticed, but when it comes to motorsports, before you can even show your skill, before you even know you have a talent in the profession, you need to be able to get your hands on a race car. And that is not cheap. Race cars cost way more than footballs and basketballs. And so, yes, the general myth that race car drivers are rich or well off is mostly true. For the millions of race car drivers out there, I'd probably say 99% of them are paying from their pocket or from family or friends or whatever to fund their racing career. But there are exceptions. I am one of them, and there are many more examples like me. And one of the reasons why the sponsorship and business side of racing is so complicated and mysterious is because there aren't many people out there who start this career from nothing and actually get signed and actually go pro without an initial, big cost put in at the beginning. The next myth is you have to start young. Yes and no. Now, the reason why I agree with that is if you're planning to get to the top levels of racing, you want to be a Formula One driver, you want to be up there racing in the LMP category and God knows what, it is way easier and you have a much higher chance of success if you start young because you're able to learn the fundamentals and improve on your skills way ahead of everybody else. So yes, in that case. But at the same time, No, not really, because motorsports really is for everyone, and there are different categories. And my point of view is I'm not here to teach people to be the number one champion on the planet. What I'm trying to teach people is how do you get into motorsports and have an enjoyable career or life or experience in this world, in the world of motorsports. So if it's that case, then no, the age doesn't matter. And a perfect example is my role model for my career. May he rest in peace. The greatest example of motorsport marketing ever, hands down, Ken Block. Ken Block started rally driving at 37 years old. And at his age, you'd be happy to say, okay, I'm just rally driving and that's enough. He ended up becoming one of the top racers in the world. And that was all from the age of 37. So it can be done. Do not let age be a limiting factor in your pursuit of trying to enter the world of motorsports. One of the most common myths I ever come across is you have to win races in order to go pro or get paid. I disagree. Yes, if the only thing you bring to the table is your speed in a car, then that is the only thing you will be valued at. And yes, that means you will constantly be fighting to keep your job as long as you are quick. The moment somebody faster comes along, you will lose your job to someone faster. And it's very understandable because that's all you are bringing to the team. But there are many ways, and we are going to learn this in this course, that you can create value for yourself as a driver that would not require just all-out speed. Now, that does not mean that you shouldn't be a competent driver, that you shouldn't be able to handle the car and be quick and win races, but it doesn't mean that you have to be the fastest. And that also means that just because you are a race winner does not necessarily mean you deserve to have sponsorship. So the first thing is I want to actually start with the driving approach, because that's the fun one, and it's also one that if you don't necessarily want to be a professional driver and you just want to have fun and enter the world of motorsport, it is the most useful category to learn, I guess. So the first thing I would recommend to anyone who wants to get into the world of racing is try an experience. There are racetracks around the world. There are rally schools. There are, all kinds of venues that offer driving experiences. And what is a driving experience? Well, it's an experience. It's a taste of this world. There are all kinds of things. You can drive a race car, a rally buggy, a formula car, a supercar, on track with an instructor, and get a feel for what it's like to take corners fast and just generally see if you enjoy it. So that's the first thing. Racing may not be for everyone, so I do recommend trying an experience. Once you've tried an experience and you're very sure that, yeah, this is something that I really enjoy and I want to pursue, try and find yourself a racing school, a driving school. There are rally schools all over the world. There are racing schools all around the world. And there are also instructors around the world. Sometimes you can book one-to-one coaching. Now, for those in Saudi Arabia, if you're unable to find a driver or an instructor here to teach you, we have Bahrain next door. We have the Emirates. You can go over there and they have plenty of experiences and courses that can teach you to drive. Once you've trained enough, the next step is to find your FIA governing body of your country. Now, the FIA is the worldwide, the standards, the governing body of motorsports, is the International Automobile Federation. It has a fancy French name, but I'm not going to attempt to pronounce it because my French is terrible. But the FIA is the governing body of motorsports around the world, and they have their own national governing bodies all around the world as well. So in the case of Saudi Arabia, you have the Saudi Arabian Motor Federation, SAMF. So if you are in Saudi, I recommend checking out the SAMF, visit their website, visit their offices, and learn as much as you can on how to get a racing license. If you are anywhere else in the world, look up your FIA governing body and get in touch with them and try and see how you can get a racing license. Another thing to look out for is look for local events. There are autocrosses, drift days, drag racing, track days, all kinds of things dotted around the world. In Saudi Arabia, we have the Rab Motor Park, we have Reem International Circuit, and in the future, we are hopefully going to be looking forward to more tracks opening up. So look for the local events. Maybe there's an open day that you can go take a regular road car and try it out. So that could be another way of learning more about your environment and what kind of racing you can pursue. It makes no sense if you're in an area that is all rally and no circuits for you to want to be a circuit driver. So try to be realistic about the area that you live in and try and match the driving that you're going to pursue with the area that you're in and what's available. Another step that I recommend is physical fitness. Is really, really, really beneficial to be physically fit. Now, obviously, at the high ends of racing, it's not just beneficial, it's necessary. You need to be an athlete, a proper athlete that can handle the abuse of a race car, because you're not just driving. You're being abused, you're being punished and bullied by your car. This is a violent ballet. And that's what you're doing when you're dancing on the limit. The G-forces that a lot of these race car drivers go through, it's unbearable to most. Your neck alone has to hold a head that can weigh up to 30 or 35 kilos under G-force. That's the equivalent of me taking fully loaded airport suitcases and telling you to balance it through the side of your head like this. It is a very abusive sport as you progressively get faster and faster. But it's also very, very, very beneficial even at the lower levels, because when you're using 100% of your brain's capacity to focus on racing, and all of a sudden your arm starts to get tired, part of your thought and thus your processing capacity of your brain moves to think about, oh, I have a tired arm. And now you've not got 100% focus on the race. Now you've got maybe 80% focus on the race and 20% on the arm. And so you've lost 20% of your brain's processing power, let's say, on actually focusing on what you should be doing with the car. So physical fitness is very important. I strongly recommend it. And there is a specific kind of fitness that you can do for racing, but for the time being and for the level that we're at, I would recommend just generally keeping fit. That should be enough. Now, in regards to licenses, the FIA has two main licenses, although there is a third, which is the drift license. But the two main licenses are the competition license and the rally license. Now, the rally license is pretty straightforward. It's for rally racing, whether that is Baja, cross-country, stage rally, etc., etc. The competition license is everything else competition. So that could be track racing, autocross, even on dirt tracks. You've got the track racing on dirt tracks, short courses, and so on. Hill climbs, sprints. Basically, all other forms of competition fall under the umbrella of the competition license. And the licenses come in grades. It can start from anything as low as a national D, and then work its way up to a national C, B, A, and then an international C, B, A, and then you have the super license, which is found in Formula One, basically. You will be totally fine with a national B or a national A for the time being. Once you get to about international C, it allows you to do pretty much all of the races that you'd want to do. Anything beyond that, it's really now you're entering a very, very competitive world where now speed really matters, and a lot of funding is required as well. But for the time being, for this course, a national license should suffice, and it will allow you to compete at your local FIA races around the country. Now there are different types of races, and I like to split them up into two categories. You have the mixed open racing, and you have the single make spec kind of racing. Now the mixed or open style of racing is basically championships where you can compete with a wide variety of vehicles. The single make, on the other hand, is where you're only allowed to compete with a specific vehicle chosen by that championship. So, for example, a single make championship could be the Mazda Miata or Mazda MX-5 Cup. You have the US Legends, which are hot rods that are all the exact same chassis, the exact same engine, same brakes, same suspension, pretty much same everything. Now, the reason why you would want a single make series is to create competition between the drivers rather than the drivers' bank accounts. And so that allows drivers, to not worry as much on having to spend money in order to stay competitive. Although money still does play a factor even in single make, but it reduces it drastically and allows drivers to shine through their driving skills. Now, the mixed or open sort of category of racing and championships, that is where you can bring a wide variety of cars, you can bring your own car, and they will try their best to qualify it into different categories. So for example, in Saudi Arabia, we have the Saudi Hill Climb. You will find that they make various categories for various types of cars. It simply means that if you have a Toyota GT86, you're not going up against a modified Lamborghini. But they will have their own categories. And within your category, spending and the money you put into the car can have a huge effect on your success in the race. But the reason why they do mixed and open, other than the fact that it is fun and you get to bring your own car and it gives the drivers the freedom to basically build their own race car, and not just build their own race car, but race in multiple categories rather than just being forced to stick to a single series. The other reason is usually availability. In a country, especially like, for example, in Saudi Arabia, where the motorsport world is still growing and still trying to build a strong foundation. We've had racing in Saudi Arabia for decades, but now it's starting to really grow and try and establish foundation. We don't have enough drivers and wealth, in terms of people willing to spend in this industry for it to justify a single make series. So we are, when I say we, I'm talking about the Saudi Motor Federation. They are resorting as best as they can to mixing a wide variety of cars and categorizing them in a reasonably competitive category where it's fun for the drivers and works out. So that's probably the main reason for a mixed or open class.